We are here. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Lopes Goes Last podcast. I, of course, am your host, Tyler Lopes. If you have not subscribed yet, please feel free to do so. Also, hit that bell icon so you never miss any one of my videos. Please like and share this video so we can help the podcast grow. And please follow me on Facebook and Twitter. That's at Lopes Goes Last podcast on Facebook and at Lopes Goes Last on Twitter. So let's jump right into this week's topics. First up, the Super Bowl. Obviously, the biggest football game of the year happened just this past Sunday as of time of recording, and it was a fantastic one. As a Patriots fan, I went into this game completely unbiased. I did not particularly care who won or lost. I'm not a big fan of really either one of the teams. I don't even particularly like, quite frankly, either one of the teams. You know, there are certain, you know how there are certain teams in the NFL that you just like, oh, you know, I like them. They're fine, you know. I wouldn't mind seeing them win a few games here or there. I don't really like the Chiefs, and I don't really like the Eagles. So, for me, it was nice. I kind of got to watch it as a completely unbiased fan, and just enjoy it, with, you know, not really rooting for anybody, just kind of following the flow of the game, and it was great. And you know what? I predicted the Philadelphia Eagles to win. A lot of other people did as well. So, you know what? And you know what? I'm not really ashamed of it. I'm really not, because it was a fantastic game. Obviously, it came down to the wire. It came down to the last couple of seconds of the game. It was really anybody's ball game all throughout. And the Eagles, you know, they pretty much thoroughly dominated the first half, got thoroughly dominated in the second half. And it just ended up, you know, being a very close game, but the Chiefs pulled it out in the end. So congratulations to Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the whole squad over there in Kansas City for winning their second Super Bowl in a handful of years. And listen, you know, you can say whatever you want about Patrick Mahomes or the Chiefs in general, but, you know, they are solidifying themselves as the best team in the NFL on a pretty consistent basis. So, you know what? Congratulations to them. Good for them. I do have a gripe, though, to pick with the Philadelphia Eagles. And again, I wasn't particularly rooting for anybody to win this ball game, but if I was going to pick somebody to win, I picked the Eagles. So you know what? I might as well just hope I turn out to be correct. That's basically as far as my fandom went in that game. Just kind of hoping my prediction was correct. And again, I'm not ashamed of that prediction. I think most people probably picked the Eagles to win the game. Analytically, they were just one of the most dominant teams in the NFL this year. Defensively, offensively, you know, they had everything that you could ask for in a team. And I tell you what, that defense let the Eagles down. I mean, they really did nothing all day. They couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes all day long. And, you know, you sit there and think, oh, well, you know, they only gave up 7 points to the offense in the first half. Right. But Patrick Mahomes only had the ball for like 8 minutes in the first half or something like that. Like, he barely had the ball. They may have gotten one stop, you know, in that second half, quite frankly, or maybe two. You know, it's not like they were consistently beating the Chiefs. And, you know, obviously the second half, they scored a touchdown every drive except for the last drive where they obviously kicked the game-winning field goal with just a few seconds left in the game. So, you know, the Eagles' defense did not do their job very well on Sunday, and they let a lot of people down. You know, I think most people that picked the Eagles picked them for, you know, not just the reason that their offense was great, but also that they felt that the defense could match up well with the Chiefs. Their pass rush was going to be able to kind of, you know, overwhelm Patrick Mahomes a little bit, or at least get in his head a little bit. You know, make him think, make him scramble more often. But their pass rush was non-existent. And, you know, people say that all the time, right? Like, you know, hey, their pass rush was non-existent. No, their pass rush was literally non-existent. If I had to guess, I would say they pressured the quarterback and actually almost got a sack like 3 times. Maybe the whole game. And that's not they sacked him 3 times. They almost sacked him 3 times. They got 0 sacks the whole game. You know, I believe the stat was announced during the Super Bowl. They had the 3rd most sacks as a team in NFL history going into the Super Bowl. I mean, that's crazy. That's a crazy amount of sacks. 85 sacks. That's a lot of sacks. They got 0 in the Super Bowl. None of it helped. None of it mattered. Now, granted, Kansas City Chiefs' offensive line has improved quite a bit since the last time they were in the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They certainly went out and made some moves and some trades, some free agency signings, some draft picks, everything that you could ask for. They said, hey, our offensive line is a weak spot. Let's trade for Orlando Brown. Let's go out and sign Joe Thuney. Let's go out and draft a center, right? So it's, their offensive line is much, much better than it used to be, for sure. But 0 sacks? Really, Philly? Really? That's the best that your crippling defense could come up with. 0 sacks in the Super Bowl. Again, all credit goes to the Chiefs' offensive line. They played, basically a perfect game. They really did. And you know what? They deserve that Super Bowl. They certainly did. But you can't help but be a little bit let down by the way the Eagles' defense came to play on Sunday. And for those of us, like me, who picked the Eagles, could you have really expected the Eagles to be that bad on defense? Now listen, the Chiefs' offense, and again, as I said, their offensive line is very, very good. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL right now for a reason. He's excellent. He's excellent under pressure. He's excellent out of the pocket. He has great arm. He just knows where everybody's going to be on the field all at once. He can make those plays that not a lot of other quarterbacks can make. That's all true. Absolutely. But if you had told me before the game that not only were the Eagles going to give up 38 points, they weren't going to get a single sack in the entire game, I'd be like, okay, listen, I know the Chiefs are good, but my goodness, like the Eagles, they've beaten better offensive lines this year and gotten tons of sacks all year. There's no way that's going to happen. Well, it did. And so you can't help but be disappointed in the way the Eagles played on Sunday, or at least their defense. But let me tell you, Jalen Hurts is for real, guys. And I know I was one of those people that, sung his death note at the beginning of this upcoming season, or at the end of last season. I did not think that Jalen Hurts was the answer at quarterback for Philly. I thought they should have traded him and drafted a quarterback at some point in the first round in the draft last year, even though the quarterback class last year was admittedly poor. And he has proved me and he has proved a lot of other people wrong. And you know what? I think if you'd asked me, hey, Tyler, I know the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. How are they going to win it? What would be the narrative of the game? I would have probably said that Jalen Hurts didn't play as well as he needed to. Just being honest with everybody, he didn't show a lot in the playoffs up to this point. They were really carried by their defense. Another reason why I was really, really disappointed in how their defense played. So for me, I genuinely would have thought that if the Chiefs had won, if you'd asked me before the game, hey, the Chiefs are winning, how'd they win? I would have said, oh, maybe Jalen Hurts didn't come to play. Maybe the lights were too bright for him. They weren't. 4 total touchdowns. I think he had over 300 passing yards as well, 70 yards on the ground. Again, 4 total touchdowns on the game for him. He came to play, and he did about as good a job as you could do. And again, the Chiefs' defense is they overperformed in the playoffs. But they do still have a good amount of talent on that defense, especially guys like Chris Jones, right, who is in the running for Defensive Player of the Year this year. And obviously Trent McDuffie, first round pick, DB for them as well. L'Jarius Sneed is really, really good, and I didn't think he was actually going to play in the Super Bowl because I believe he went out with a concussion in the AFC Championship game. It may have just been like a head injury, some kind of head injury, I can't remember. But I think it was a concussion. And so, you worry if he was even going to play at all, and he obviously suited up and he played very well. So yeah, I would have thought maybe Jalen Hurts wasn't going to do it for the Eagles, but he played spectacular. And he did just about everything he could in the Super Bowl for his team to win, and his defense just didn't show up. And I really hope that history is kind to Jalen Hurts in this regard, especially if he does not end up winning a Super Bowl, although, Philly is going to be excellent next year as well. A lot of their team is very, very young. So it's I don't know if I'd expect him to be as good next year, depending on how free agency and the draft shakes up. But I do expect him to be very good for a handful of years here because a lot of their players, their key players, obviously Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, some of the guys on defense, a lot of them are very young or under long-term contract anyway. So for me, I think the Eagles are going to be right in contention for a while. But if Jalen Hurts somehow never ends up winning a Super Bowl in his career, I hope history is kind to him on what happened on Sunday because he played very, very well. He deserved to win that Super Bowl just as much as Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs did. His defense just let him down just a little bit more than the Chiefs defense let Patrick Mahomes down. So, anyways, again, congratulations to the Chiefs. They deserved it. Again, all that to be said, the Chiefs certainly deserved to win the Super Bowl. It was a fantastic game, and I was happy to enjoy it as a fan. And you know what? I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs are right back in the Super Bowl next year. Again, the Bills kind of let me down. I picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl this year, and against the Bengals in the divisional, just about everything that could have gone wrong for the Bills went wrong. So you know what? I don't know if that window is going to be open for much longer for Buffalo. I certainly can see the Bengals continuing to be contenders. I always hope the Patriots are contenders, but you know what? Unless things change, I don't see it. And then obviously on the NFC side, you still have the Eagles. I would say the Cowboys, but I mean, they're probably just going to lose in the playoffs anyway. The San Francisco 49ers are obviously on the up and up. Depending on what they do at quarterback, they've got a ton of talent on both sides of the ball over there in San Fran. I could easily see them winning the Super Bowl next year if if their team stays healthy and they don't implode with injuries like they did this year, especially at the quarterback position. I mean, Josh Johnson being your quarterback in the NFC Championship game, I mean, that's heartbreaking for San Francisco. You got to feel like they felt like they had a real shot of winning that game until Brock Purdy tore his UCL. So, that's heartbreaking. I could very easily see them in it. Who knows what's going to happen in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. And whenever you have Aaron Rodgers on your team, you're just going to kind of by default be a playoff contender unless the team around him is just absolute, poo. Again, the point being there's a ton of teams that I could see competing for the Super Bowl next year. We'll see kind of how it shakes up. I could very easily see the Chargers taking another big step up next year. The Ravens, if they re-sign Lamar and get some more talent around him, could be dangerous. There's a ton of teams, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs are back in it next year. And I also wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles are back in it next year as well. So we'll see how it goes. But again, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl 57 champions. The NBA trade deadline was just last week. It just ended last Thursday, so a week ago as of the time of this recording. And I said last week that I was going to go a little bit more in depth on the trades that happened over that time. And I am a man of my word. So here I am. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break down every single trade that happened at or around the NBA trade deadline, starting with the Rui Hachimura trade. So, any other trade that happened before that. Just as an example, Celtics trading Noah Vonleh to the Spurs for cash and a conditional second-round pick or something like that. We're not going to get into that one, even though I just mentioned it. But point being, we're not going to talk about that one in depth. I'm not going to grade that trade or anything that happened before that, or before the Rui Hachimura trade. So we'll start with that one. I did my best to kind of go in chronological order. Obviously, if in the comments section somebody says, "Oh well, the Eric Gordon trade happened at 2:54 p.m. Eastern time, and the Mason Plumlee trade happened at 2:55," but you talked about the Mason Plumlee trade first. Good for you. You keep track of the timestamps. Fantastic. But I did my best to keep it as chronological as I could. But obviously all these crazy things happened. But I am going to talk about the Kevin Durant trade last, just because that's the one that's kind of the biggest over the weekend, even though I'm fairly certain that happened the night before most of the other trade deadline ones happened. So yeah, I did my best to kind of keep it in chronological order. If it's not in chronological order other than the KD one, I'm sorry. I don't know when each trade happened specifically in terms of what time of day. And then obviously, I'm not talking about the Gary Payton trade, or Gary Payton II, I should mention. I'm not talking about that trade last, even though technically it didn't go through until a couple days after the trade deadline. I'm going off of when it was first agreed upon. That's what I'm going to be doing for that one, just so you guys are clear. But yeah, anyways, let me know what you guys think of my grades as we go along. Let me know in the comments section, what grade do you think I got wrong? What do you think I got right? Do you just hate me? Whatever the case is, just throw that in the comments section. I'd love to have a conversation with you guys. I'd love to try and, continue this discussion with all of you in the comments. And I'd love to kind of hear your guys' perspective, because you know what? There might be a Charlotte Hornets fan in the comments section that knows a lot more about Mason Plumlee than I do, or a Portland Trailblazers fan that knows a lot more about Gary Payton II than I do, or whatever the case may be, where maybe I'm wrong about a player. Who knows? I do not claim to know everything. I try my best to, but I do not claim to know everything. So, anyways, again, let me know in the comments section what you guys think, and just so you guys know, I am going to have to be looking at my notes. Obviously, there is no way I'm going to be able to have memorized all the players and all the draft picks and everything beforehand. That would just be ridiculous. So I'm going to be looking down a little bit more than I otherwise might during these videos, so do bear with me there. All right, starting off, as I mentioned in the intro, the Rui Hachimura trade. So, in this trade, the Los Angeles Lakers received Rui Hachimura, and the Washington Wizards received Kendrick Nunn, a conditional 2028 second-round pick, and a 2029 second-round pick. Now, one thing I did forget to mention, some of these specified that they were conditional, some of these specified the year, some of them did not. So, if it's a first-round pick that has a protection on it and I don't mention it, I apologize. I mentioned the ones that I knew had protections on it. For instance, later on, the Lakers will give away their 2027 first-round pick in one of their trades, and I know that is top 4 protected because that is what was initially reported on in the news. But other than that, and a couple other examples, a lot of them just said 2028 second-round pick, or just even second-round pick or first-round pick or whatever it is. So, if I get the year, if I don't get the year, or if I don't get a protection on there, I apologize. But either way, these are going to be the trades that happen. So I did want to mention that before I continued. So, what grades will I give this one? So the Lakers, I'm going to give an A- for this one. I love Rui Hachimura. I think that he's kind of lost, or he was anyway, kind of lost in Washington. And I think that the Lakers really just needed an offensive jolt on their team. Because again, LeBron James is playing out of his mind at 38 years old. It's been phenomenal to watch. And Anthony Davis is obviously fantastic when he's on the court. But he's not always on the court. And outside of that, they don't really have anybody on offense that's really helping the two of them on a consistent basis. As much as I love Lonnie Walker, he's far too inconsistent on offense. Austin Reeves isn't getting it done. Your Pat Beverleys and your Russell Westbrooks weren't getting it done either, who we'll get to those guys in a little bit. But I'm going to give it an A-, like I said, because Rui Hachimura is a force on offense, or at least he can be. He gives them a nice punch inside as well. I know that, that kind of backup 4 spot, or even just that 4 spot in general, has been a bit of an itch for the Lakers that they just haven't been able to scratch ever since Kyle Kuzma left. But even then, Kyle Kuzma was coming off the bench a lot. So, it was just one of those things where, you want to play Anthony Davis there. That's probably his best position. But at this point, you know what? He's not. I don't think he's a 4 at this point. I think he's more of a 5. Just based on his play style. I know he can shoot a little bit, but I think he's shooting like 28% from the field, or not from the field, but from 3 or something like that. It's just not going to get it done consistently. So I think he's more of a stretch 5 than he is a 4 at this point in his career. So I think Rui Hachimura sliding into that 4 spot, I think is going to be great for the Lakers. And for the Wizards, I'm going to give it a C+, barely above an average grade here. And the reason is because, I don't love what they got back. I mean, it doesn't really do anything for, their rebuild at this point. Again, I can understand Rui Hachimura had to go. He wasn't going to re-sign, so you had to get something for him. But in these moments, you know what? You can either get a great package for somebody, or you can, just settle because you feel like you have to get something. And 2 second-round picks are not going to do it for me. I don't think that you're really going to be able to stake your franchise on a couple second-round picks. And certainly Kendrick Nunn is not going to be your answer at point guard. And you know what? Maybe that's not what the Wizards were going for, but this package just underwhelms me a little bit, even considering the circumstances. So C+ for the Wizards. The second trade, it's a big one. Kyrie Irving and Markieff Morris got traded to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, a 2029 first-round pick, and 2 second-round picks. So, pretty large trade package for Kyrie Irving and Markieff Morris, at least in terms of just kind of the breadth of it. My grades, I already know there's gonna be somebody in the comment section that watches this that's not gonna be happy with what I'm about to say here. I'm gonna give the Mavericks a B on this one. Now, why am I giving it a B? Kyrie Irving is a fantastic player, and I genuinely love the fit. As I said in my Kyrie Irving video that I posted, that's gotten a pretty good amount of traction, so I'm very appreciative of that from you guys, so thank you. If you haven't seen that, go check it out, though. In my Kyrie Irving video, I said that I thought it was a perfect fit. I thought that he really was going to help bring an element to that offense and to that team that they don't have right now. But the thing is, for me, I think that you gave up the only real help outside of Christian Wood that they would get, they meaning Kyrie and Luka, because again, while Dorian Finney-Smith and is not that great of a player in terms of just overall performance, right? He's not somebody that's going to blow you away. He was still pretty solid defensively. He could shoot the ball, so like he was all right in certain moments. Like he really helped lift that team when he was doing well. And then obviously Spencer Dinwiddie is a great player that I really, really like. I think he's been underrated for a long time. And listen, I understand that, you want Kyrie Irving, right? You got to get rid of some talent, and that's great. But for me, I think more the grade is not higher, not because they got Kyrie, which I think a lot of people are going to assume why I don't like this trade, but I actually don't think that that's the case, at least not for me. I think the reason why it's just a B for me is because they gave up good talent, but also they didn't get rid of any of the horrendously bad contracts that they have on their roster. For instance, Davis Bertans, right? Dwight Powell's on a large contract. I would have been okay if he was in that trade package. A guy like Reggie Bullock is making $10 million a year to barely play, and even when he plays, he's not producing very much. There's another one. Oh, Tim Hardaway. There you go. Tim Hardaway Jr., another guy that's on a big contract that's just not going to get it done. So for me, you didn't get rid of any of those big contracts. You gave up some good talent. You gave up a draft pick. You gave up a couple second-round picks. And you still have no guarantee if Kyrie Irving's going to re-sign. That also plays a part in it. But I try not to weigh the grade too heavily on that, just because, if that's how it is and it's going to be really low grade for everybody that's on a one-year deal, and that's just not how these trades work. So, I'm going to give it a B. Again, I just don't think that it doesn't blow me away. I'm happy that Kyrie is in Dallas. I think it's going to be a good fit for him. And I hope for Dallas' sake he stays, because if not, they gave up a lot of talent for nothing, really, especially if they don't win a championship this year. But again, it doesn't blow me away for the Mavericks, and I still don't think they have a lot of help around Kyrie and Luka. And for the Nets, I'm going to give it a B+, and the reason is because I think that the package that they got back for Kyrie Irving, from their perspective, a guy who needed to go, wasn't going to re-sign in the offseason, and quite frankly was not doing your franchise any favors at this point. I think it was a brilliant trade. I think they got just about as much as you could possibly get. A guy in Spencer Dinwiddie who came up in Brooklyn, who started his career there, and the fans loved him, and then he was shipped out of town. Once Kyrie and KD and everybody got there, right? And so it's great that he's back. I think that he's obviously a fan favorite there, and he's going to continue to be. And I think he hit some like crazy 40-foot shot to tie the game the other day. It was just insane. Spencer Dinwiddie is a special player. So to get him back in that trade, I think it's a real big morale boost for your fans that are, probably a little bit sad at the way all this turned out. At least they get Spencer Dinwiddie back. That's at least some kind of consolation prize. And then obviously Dorian Finney-Smith is a guy who's on a reasonable contract. Still a little bit big in my mind, but hey, $12 million isn't going to kill you as a franchise, at least not by itself. And then, obviously, you get that first round pick from the Dallas Mavericks, and who knows in, 2029? Yeah, 2029. Who knows? Maybe Dallas could be bad by then. You never know. Maybe Luka has walked out at that, or not walked out, but maybe Luka's left at that point. You never know what's going to happen. So those first round picks are valuable, especially down the road when nobody has any idea where the NBA is going to be in that many years. And then obviously a couple of second round picks just to fill the depth. I think it's a really good trade. Does it absolutely blow me away? No, not necessarily. That's why it's not getting an A. But at the same time, I think they got just about as much as you could possibly get. I would have maybe liked to see them get another first-round pick. I think if they'd gotten 2 first-round picks for Kyrie Irving, I think that would have really done the trick for me. So I'm going to give it a good B+. And you know what? I might even give it an A-. But, right now for this video, let's give it a B+. Next trade is a bit of a smaller one. So the Miami Heat got cash considerations in exchange for Dwayne Dedmon and a 2028 second-round pick. C's all around. Let's just give them all C's. Look at all the C's. They're everywhere. No, I'm kidding. It's just there's just one. So, who cares? It's cash and Dwayne Dedmon in a second-round pick. Great. Perfect. Whatever. Oh, by the way, Dwayne Dedmon got traded to the Spurs. I'm not even sure if I mentioned that. So, yeah, there you go. C's for everybody. Next trade, the Sacramento Kings get Kessler Edwards and cash considerations from the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for David Michinel? Don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry. And he is a overseas player that they got that is still over there. And so basically the Nets get his draft rights. So for this, I'm going to give the Sacramento Kings a B. Something rare for me to do. I don't typically give high grades to Sacramento Kings trades, as you guys have known in the past. I typically have not loved the way the Sacramento Kings have ran their franchise the last 2 decades. But hey, you know what? They're playing really, really well this year. So good for them. They finally got something to hang their hat on. And I think this is a good trade for them. Kessler Edwards, he has played horrible this year. I think he's shooting like 25% from the field. He's averaging like 1 point a night. It's not good. But he's 22 years old. You know what? He could develop into something. You might as well take a little bit of a chance on him. And I'm not going to lie to you. David Michino, whatever, Machino, I don't know his name or how to pronounce it anyway. I had to look him up because I didn't really know who he was. I wasn't familiar with him. I believe, unless I'm mistaken, he's in his upper 20s or even early 30s in terms of age. He is up there. He's not a young man. He's not a 19-year-old that may come in and turn into something that the Brooklyn Nets can get. He may be like a draft steal or something like that, He's not that. So I was a little confused at this trade. I'm not really sure why they got rid of Kessler Edwards at this point. If that's all you're going to get back is a guy who's in his high 20s, maybe even early 30s, that may never even make it to the NBA. Very confusing. Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm going to give it a D for the Nets. Didn't love this trade at all. On to a trade that I did love for at least one of these teams. The Toronto Raptors traded for Jakob Poeltl, the center from the San Antonio Spurs, in exchange for Khem Birch, a 2024 first-round pick, and 2 future second-round picks, including one in 2023, so this upcoming year. I love this trade for both teams, quite frankly. So for me, I'm going to give the Raptors an A. It's one of my favorite trades of the deadline. I think that he is the perfect fit in Toronto. They've been looking for a center for a while now, and I think Jakob Poeltl, especially if he re-signs long term, is exactly what they need. The rebounding, the defense, a little bit of scoring. So, you know what? I think he's a perfect fit in Toronto. I really was kind of hoping the Celtics would trade for him, but he's a much better fit long term in Toronto for me. So I don't hate that, even though he's going to be in our division now. I don't hate it. I absolutely love it, in fact. Trying to be unbiased here, obviously. So, fantastic. Did you give up a lot for him? Absolutely. Will it be crappy if he doesn't re-sign? Absolutely. But considering he dropped 30 the other night, I'm pretty sure he's going to be re-signing. I feel like he likes it in Toronto already. So yeah, definite A for me. And for the Spurs, I'm going to give it a B+. I thought that the trade package that they got in return was fantastic. You know, I was hoping that we'd be able to trade for Jakob Poeltl for just a first-round pick. And they were able to get a center to replace him. Now, Ken Burch is nowhere near as talented or as good as Jakob Poeltl, but somebody to replace him on the roster, and you got 2 second-round picks, and you got a first-round pick. So you know what? Good for the Spurs. They got a fantastic trade package that I didn't think they'd get that much for Jakob Poeltl, especially since he's on an expiring contract and is going to want to get paid $20 million, if not more, next year. That's just how it's going to be. He's a fantastic player. So, you know what? Good for the Spurs. I'm giving it a B+. Do I love the fact that they own, like, I wish they may have, you know, maybe if they had gotten a decent, a better young player than Ken Burch, maybe I would have given it an A, but Jakob Poeltl is a great player, and they got a good package for him, so I'm going to give it a B+. The next trade, another big one. This is where the Los Angeles Lakers got D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt. And this is, again, the first, I didn't mention this before, this is the first 3-team trade that I'm going to be going over here. It's going to be involving the Lakers, Timberwolves, and Jazz. So as I said, obviously, Lakers get D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt. The Minnesota Timberwolves get Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 3 second-round picks, 2 from the Jazz and 1 from the Lakers. And the Jazz receive Russell Westbrook, Juan Toscano-Anderson, Damian Jones, and that 2027 first-round pick from the Lakers that I mentioned earlier. That is top 4 protected. This is a blockbuster trade for the Lakers, and, you know, obviously this is really, really interesting on all fronts, and something that I think is long overdue. I don't think I've said it on any of my past podcasts, or I may have tweeted it at one point, but maybe I haven't. But I've certainly been thinking, I bet you the Lakers wish they still had D'Angelo Russell at this point, because I think he'd be a perfect fit over there in LA, considering all the talent that they have. They need shooting. They need another ball handler that can score and you know, put the ball in the basket consistently. And here we go. They trade for D'Angelo Russell right here. I think it's a great fit for the Lakers. And on top of that, you get Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt. I really want to give this an A+, but I'm not going to. I'm going to give it an A. I'm going to hold off and try and calm down my bias. Because, you know, for me, I think that they did give up a decent amount, but I think the package that they got in return is just excellent. I think the Lakers far and away got the best package in this trade. Again, like I said, D'Angelo Russell is a great player. He's not much of a defender, but he's a really, really good scorer. He's still fairly young, so, you know, he may even have some more time to develop a little bit. And he doesn't have to be the alpha on your team, and he's not going to be, considering obviously LeBron and AD is already on that team. So I think that he makes that team much better than what they had before. And then obviously Malik Beasley is another young guy that I think could really, really do well in that rotation. I think it gives them more depth at that guard forward spot. And again, another guy that can help defend and help put the ball in the basket. And Jared Vanderbilt is another guy that I was really hoping the Celtics would have traded for. But obviously he's going to end up with the Lakers. And you know what? He's a great young player as well. I think he could develop into something. Not going to lie to you, Jared Vanderbilt in NBA 2K20 was a steal of a player that you could trade for in franchise, because, yeah, he might have started off at a 71 overall, but you give it 2 years, he's going to end up being an 80 overall, And, he's either a good starting power forward or a guy you could trade, or a guy that you can just bring in off your bench to solidify that defense and a little bit of scoring in that video game. So, you know what? Hey, Jared Vanderbilt, one of my favorite NBA 2K20 players of all time. But either way, point being, I think it's a great trade for the Lakers. I'm going to give them an A. The Timberwolves, I'm going to give that a C-. I didn't love the package that they got. And for me, listen, I understand that D'Angelo Russell may have not been the guy that you wanted in Minnesota in terms of the guy that may help lead your offense to a championship and put up 25 points a night, and he just hasn't been that guy consistently. But, I mean, you gave up. I was thinking that, you were going to give up Jared Vanderbilt for at least 2 second-round picks. I figured that was his price range. You have to at least 2 second-round picks. So they got 3 second-round picks. So what you're telling me is D'Angelo Russell to you, Minnesota, is worth Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and 1 second-round pick? That's it? That's what D'Angelo Russell is worth to you? He's not even worth a first-round pick? That seems crazy to me. Now, I don't think they got a first-round pick from this trade. I may have misread, but if they didn't, goodness gracious, that's all you got for D'Angelo Russell and Jared Vanderbilt? Again, I thought Jared Vanderbilt was worth 2 second-round picks. But even if he's worth 1, you're telling me D'Angelo Russell's not worth a first-round pick in your mind? Listen, I love Nickeil Alexander-Walker as much as the next guy. His potential, to me, is not worth not getting a first-round pick for D'Angelo Russell. I think that is a disgrace. I think that is terrible. The only reason I'm giving it a C+ is because of how much I like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think that he could have potential, especially if what I think is going to happen is Anthony Edwards is going to kind of move to that de facto point guard spot, which I'm not sure that's the best fit for him. But either way, if you can slide Nickeil Alexander-Walker into that 2 spot, or bring him off the bench as a guy who can play solid defense and score a little bit for you, I think it could end up working out well in the long term. So that's why I'm giving it a C-, because my initial reaction was to give it a D+ or a D. I do not like the fact that they didn't get a first-round pick for D'Angelo Russell. And you know what? For a minute, I was like, and they gave up Malik Beasley, but then I forgot he doesn't play for Minnesota anymore. He played for the Jazz this year. So either way, point being, I don't like this trade very much for the Timberwolves, so I'm going to give it a C-. And for the Jazz, I'm going to give it a B-. I don't think they gave up a ton. Obviously, Malik Beasley didn't factor into their plans. Neither did Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I'm not sure why Nickeil Alexander-Walker doesn't factor into your plans, but that's okay. I understand. But for me, it's... I don't know, man. I don't love this trade. Obviously, you got Russell Westbrook, who you're probably either going to buy out or he's just going to sit on your bench and not play for you for the rest of the year and then walk. So you're not going to get any value for him. Juan Toscano-Anderson's not really a relevant player in the NBA right now. Neither is Damian Jones, and you got 1 first-round pick. Now listen, it's a good first-round pick. That's a really good first-round pick. Even with the top 4 protection, I think most of us know that the Lakers have gone all in. And in 4 years, there ain't going to be no AD over there. There ain't going to be no LeBron James over there. It's going to be a whole big rebuilding process by then. Or at least it's projected to be at this point. Maybe AD stays and maybe that's LeBron's last year. Whatever it is, the point being, that pick has a good chance of being really, really high in the draft. So it's a valuable pick for sure. Don't get me wrong, and that's the reason why it's a B-. Because, look, if you were going to get that pick... If you're Utah, you didn't give up a whole lot for that pick. I mean, quite frankly, I think that's a really, really good job by Danny Ainge to swing that part of it. But I don't love the rest of the package you got back. So again, good, but not great. Right above that C threshold because I like that pick so much. So B-, I think, is a fair enough grade on that one. Moving on, another 4-team trade here for you. The Nuggets get Thomas Bryant, while the Los Angeles Lakers get Mo Bamba, Devon Reed, and a second-round pick. And the Clippers get point guard Bones Highland, and the Magic get Patrick Beverley, a 2024 second-round pick from the Nuggets, and cash considerations. So, This one is a weird one because I think 3 of these 4 teams got a pretty reasonable deal out of this. And then for me, I think that one team really got fleeced in this one, and I'm going to start with the one that got fleeced first. The Nuggets, D+. I cannot stand this trade for the Nuggets. Look, Thomas Bryant has been a fairly reasonable contributor on the Lakers this year. Sure, absolutely. But he's not going to be anything other than a backup center for you that's going to play, what, 10 minutes a night with Jokic out there? I mean, Jokic is going to play 35, 38 minutes a night. So what, even if Thomas Bryant takes all the rest of those minutes, he's going to play 10 minutes a night for you, get 3-4 rebounds, 4 points maybe. Like, he's not going to blow me. He doesn't blow me away in terms of a package. And you gave up a second-round pick. You gave up Bones Highland, and you know what? I don't know who that second-round pick is that went to the Lakers. That might have been from the Denver Nuggets as well. I'm not really sure. So for me, I just think that it's not a good trade for the Nuggets. I would rather have Bones Highland than Thomas Bryant anyway, just because of the potential of Bones Highland. He's shown some flashes this year, and I just don't think Thomas Bryant is really going anywhere at this point. So I don't love this trade for the Nuggets at all. D+ for me. Lakers, I'm going to give it a B. You know what? They gave up a decent amount. Thomas Bryant, again, was a solid contributor for them this year, especially, and he was important when Anthony Davis went down. So, you know, I think if he's given a lot more minutes, he could be effective for you in certain ways, but he's not going to get that in Denver. And so, you know, you gave him up, but you got Mo Bamba, who I've always said is a lot more talented than what he's shown, and I think that he'll get a little bit more decent run in LA. You know, Devon Reed, I don't know much about him, so I can't really comment on him all that much, to be honest. And then a second-round pick as well. And then, obviously, you know, you sent off Patrick Beverley as well. So, you know what? I don't love this trade. It's nowhere near an A for me. But I think you got a solid package. A few guys that might be able to contribute for you in the future. And then you get a second-round pick as well on top of it. I'll give it a B. I feel like that's fair. The Clippers, I'm giving it an A-. I'm sure you guys can already get that vibe. I like Bones Highland a lot. And I don't really think that the Clippers gave up all that much, quite frankly, in this trade. So, hey, you know what? Good for the Clippers. You got Bones Highland for not a whole lot. So, good for you. You get a decent young point guard that might develop into something. A- for me. And the Magic, I'm going to give it a B-. I think that giving up Mo Bamba is, you know, it's not the most ideal scenario. I think that I really wish that he would have turned out better than he did for the Magic. But, you know, they have a million centers anyway. They always have. So, you know, Patrick Beverley, you know, you're going to probably waive him here soon if he hasn't already been waived at the time of this recording. I obviously haven't looked at my phone. I've been recording for about 45 minutes here up to this point. But, so, you know, he may have gotten bought out already. But you know what? Hey, a second-round pick and some cash from Mo Bamba. All right. I mean, you know, that's not the greatest package in the world. But, hey, why not? It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. So, B-. Moving on now, a bit more of a minor trade here. The Atlanta Hawks got Bruno Fernando and Garrison Matthews from the Houston Rockets in exchange for Justin Holiday, Frank Kaminsky, and 2 second-round picks. This trade doesn't do anything for me for really either team. I'm going to give the Hawks a D- here. I don't get why you made this trade, really. It feels like they just didn't really do anything at the trade deadline other than this. And for me, this doesn't move the needle in either direction. It doesn't make you worse. It doesn't make you better. You gave up 2 second-round picks, which, again, second-round picks aren't the most valuable thing in the world, but at least they give you something. I don't know. I don't love it. I really just can't stand it, quite frankly. I mean, Garrison Matthews and Bruno Fernando don't do anything for me. And I don't think it makes you better. I don't think it makes you worse. D-. The Rockets, I'll give it a C+ for the simple fact that they're a rebuilding team. They got rid of a couple of contracts that, maybe these guys weren't going to stick around. You got a couple of second-round picks for it. You don't have to do anything else with your roster. You basically just got 2 free second-round picks, all things considered, because, again, you're not going anywhere. You're already, I think they have the worst record in the NBA right now, or at least one of them. For me, it's just, doesn't really matter. So, C+. Moving on, the Suns get Darius Bazley, so a decent get there for the Phoenix Suns, in exchange for Dario Saric, a 2029 second-round pick, and cash. So, for the Suns, I'm going to give this a B+. I like taking a swing on a young guy that may develop a little bit. I think that they needed some more depth at the 4 after the big trade that happened that I'll talk about later. So I think that was good. Dario Saric obviously didn't want to be there, and he wasn't really doing anything for them. And so you got a decent young guy who may develop into something for not a whole lot. So B+, great, pretty good trade there for the Phoenix Suns. And for the Thunder, I'm going to give this one a B. You know what? Darius Bazley, you drafted him in the first round. I believe in the first round. May have been high second round. Somewhere, they drafted him with the idea that he was going to develop and he was going to be great for them, and it just hasn't panned out. He's shown flashes like a lot of young guys have, but he just hasn't been consistent. So you know what? You want to cut ties with him. He's not a part of your rebuild. You have 1 million first-round picks in the next few years. You need an open roster spot where you're not committed to a young guy that may develop. Fine, get an extra second-round pick, get some cash, get rid of a guy that is not in your plans anyway in Dario Saric, or not get rid of him, but bring him in, and then I'm sure he's going to get bought out or just walk in free agency next year. That's what I mean by get rid of him. So you know what? Great. It's maybe not great. Good trade for the Thunder. Doesn't really move the needle in either direction for me, but it doesn't hurt either, so I'm going to give it a B. Next trade. This one is it was a big mess, so we'll kind of try and break it down as best I can. The Golden State Warriors get back one of the fans' most beloved players over the last couple of years, Gary Payton II, along with 3 future second-round picks. I believe all those second-round picks were from the Atlanta Hawks. And the Hawks, in this trade, get Saddiq Bey from the Pistons, and those Pistons got James Wiseman from the Golden State Warriors, and the Trailblazers, for me, they got Kevin Knox and 5 second-round picks in this trade. So, here is what I think about these trades. I think the Warriors, I'm going to give them a C-. Now, I will tell you this. If Gary Payton II was healthy, this would not be getting a C-. If everything that has happened over the last few days had not happened, this would not be getting a C-. This would probably be getting a B, B+, maybe even an A- for me, because Gary Payton II was very vital to their success last year, and I think his defense alone is something that the Golden State Warriors could really use, right? Especially right now when you're trying to claw your way back into a race in the West, where you're kind of hovering, between making the playoffs and then the play-in. But for those of you who do not know, Gary Payton II failed his physical. So this trade was held up for a few days, and ultimately the Warriors decided to go ahead with it anyway. Which, I mean, quite frankly, for James Wiseman must be a little bit insulting. A guy's like, he's 30 years old, Gary Payton is. He's not even healthy, and I was your former number 2 overall pick. You barely played me. You never played me, and now you're just shipping me out for nothing? I mean, I'd feel disrespected if I was James Wiseman, but nonetheless, I am going to obviously give this a C- because of all of that. I think if you're going to give up a former number 2 overall pick where you have to be sure that they're not going to develop into anything, I think you should have given him more chances on your actual team and not your G League team. I think you should have tried to develop him, and you should have tried to play him a little bit. And then when you ship him out, don't ship him out for nothing. Ship him out for something you can build on. Yeah, they may have gotten 3 second-round picks, but, I mean, I don't know. I believe they shipped out 5 second-round picks, so they actually lost 2 second-round picks in this trade, if that is the case. So, I don't know, man. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt because of the Warriors, and maybe that's my fault. Maybe I shouldn't. And maybe Gary Payton will turn out to be healthy, and he'll be a force in the playoffs for them. Who knows? So I'm going to give it a C-. I wouldn't be shocked if this didn't work out, though. For the Hawks, I'm going to give this a B. I think that it's fairly, it's a fairly good trade for the Hawks. I think you're a little crowded at power forward now with John Collins still there, so I'm not sure what the plan is with that. But you know what? I think that, you didn't give up a whole lot if you're the Hawks. You gave up 3 second-round picks for a guy that may develop into something pretty fantastic in Saddiq Bey. So I think the value alone, even if the fit's not perfect, I think the value alone is pretty darn good for the Hawks. So I'm going to give it a B. For the Pistons, I'm giving this a C. And the reason is not because I don't like James Wiseman. I do like James Wiseman, and I think that he can still be a very, very good center in the NBA if he stays healthy and if he actually gets the run at it. But the thing is, for me, the Pistons already have a lot of rebuilding projects at center. You already have Marvin Bagley, who is another former number 2 overall that you traded for, and he signed a 3-year extension. He's hurt right now, but he's there for the long term. For Detroit, unless you trade him, obviously. You have Isaiah Stewart, who I believe starts for them pretty much every night. You got Jalen Duren, who I believe is 19 years old, somewhere around there, 19 or 20. He's very, very young. And now you're going to add James Wiseman to that mix. I don't see the vision there. I mean, that's a lot of young centers that you're going to have to play or trade or do something with. You're starting to oversaturate that position. And it's not like it's a point guard position. Like, the Celtics have an overabundance of point guards right now. But the point guard position is invaluable in today's NBA. You need a good or great or fantastic point guard to even have a chance of being a great team in the NBA. So, you know what? We have Marcus Smart, we have Derek White, we have Malcolm Brogdon, and then after that we have Peyton Pritchard, who, he's not the best point guard in the world, but heck, he's a fire starter on the offensive end at least. So, you know what? There's an overabundance at point guard there, but it's a valuable position. I'm not saying center's not valuable, but it's not nearly as valuable as a wing or as a point guard. It just isn't. Like, it's not. So if you're going to have an overabundance at a position, it shouldn't be center. That's why I can't stand the Magic sometimes, is because I feel like they have a million centers that they barely play, and they ship them out of town, and they're mediocre or bad every year. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I think the Pistons are going down that path right now. And look, again, the reason why it's a C and not like a D for me is because the value is pretty darn good. Listen, Saddiq Bey wasn't working out for you, so you shipped him out of town for James Wiseman, who may work out for you. Great. That makes sense. But, again, there's an overabundance at center there. And so if the goal is to develop James Wiseman by playing him, then what's going to happen when Marvin Bagley comes back? He's not going to be playing 25 minutes a night when Marvin Bagley comes back, when Bagley's either going to be starting or he's going to be the main big, coming off the bench. So does that mean that Wiseman doesn't play? Does that mean that he plays, but Jalen Duren, who you drafted to develop, is not going to play? Like, what's the plan there? I don't see it. I don't get it. So right now it's going to get a C. And for the Trailblazers, I'm going to give it an A. I mean, listen, Gary Payton II, good player for sure, and his defense is obviously valuable to any team he goes on. However, the Pistons are not going any, or excuse me, not the Pistons. The Trailblazers are not going anywhere this year. The Pistons aren't going anywhere this year either. But talking about the Trailblazers, they're rebuilding. Listen, they're not going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Western Conference this year. It's just not going to happen. It was kind of looking like that at the beginning of the season. They've fallen off a cliff. As much as I love Damian Lillard, he cannot carry this team by himself, and that's what Portland has been asking him to do basically since he got drafted. And it's a crime shame, and they're lucky that he's so loyal because he doesn't have any help. Anthony Simons is okay. Yusuf Nurkic is okay. I don't know, man. I just think that he needs more help. He needs more help. But if you're going to be rebuilding and you're going to try and get some value, 5 second-round picks and a reasonable player for Gary Payton the second, who was hurt anyway, I think that's great value. So I'm going to give it an A here. And hopefully they can turn those 5 second-round picks into something in terms of value for a player that can help Damian Lillard eventually get that championship that he deserves so greatly. Next trade. The Pelicans get Josh Richardson in exchange for Devontae Graham and 4 second-round picks. I'm going to give the Pelicans a B here. Josh Richardson obviously played for the Celtics for a little bit. Also played for the 76ers. He's played for the Heat. He's played for a couple of other teams. So, I'm a little bit more familiar with him than I may be other role players in the NBA. And I think that, this is, I think he's going to help out the Pelicans here. I don't love the value of the trade. I think they gave up a little bit too much for him. But you know what? If they think that he can help, and if the Pelicans are trying to go all in this year, maybe he helps this year and next year possibly, help that championship caliber team really come together. So I'll give it a B. Doesn't blow me away. I don't think it's great value, but I do think he can help that team. I'm going to give the Spurs an A-, though. Does anybody else remember when Devontae Graham was averaging 20 points a night, or is that just me? I don't know. I feel like I'm the only one in all of the NBA circle that remembers that Devontae Graham used to actually be really good for the Hornets. Yeah, I don't know why I thought I was lying there, but yeah, for the Hornets. And then he just never played, and then he went to New Orleans, and now he's getting shipped out as a throw-in piece to get a bunch of draft picks. That's crazy. I understand he's not a good defender, but man, the guy can still play, right? I don't know. I'm just a little surprised. I think that the value, 4 second-round picks for Josh Richardson and a player that I honestly think should be playing more, good for the Spurs. I think it's pretty good value for Josh Richardson. And again, the Spurs are rebuilding. They don't need fantastic players on their team right now. So get as many draft picks as you can. Try and move up in the draft. Try and trade for more draft picks. And hopefully, you hit on something, and that's what starts your rebuild. On to another trade. The Boston Celtics traded for Mike Muscala from the Thunder in exchange for Justin Jackson and 2 second-round picks. I'm going to give both teams an A- here. So, obviously just one A- up on the screen for both teams. I like it for both. I think that it really helps out both teams. Obviously, Mike Muscala helps bring another dynamic to the Celtics that they don't necessarily have all that much of. Al Horford is a decent shooting big guy, but, Mike Muscala is on another level. He's shooting about 40% from 3 right now as an individual player. And so, you know what? In the case of what it's been this past week and what it may be down the stretch for the Celtics, where Rob Williams is not as effective as he should be because of his hampering of injuries, and then Al Horford, who needs rest sometimes, I think he really, really helps bring more depth to that team that Blake Griffin and Luke Cornett are just not going to give you. I think that he gives you more shooting, and so I think that you can never have enough shooting in today's NBA, so I think that's great. So I think he's really, really going to help solidify that front court for the Celtics. And for the Thunder, again, an A-. Muscala wasn't going to stick around. You got 2 second-round picks for it. Again, Justin Jackson, not going to move the needle for the Thunder, but mainly the 2 second-round picks is what I'm looking at. Great value for Mike Muscala if you're the Thunder. And I think for the Celtics, you're more than happy to pay that price, considering you were probably thinking about giving up some first-round picks for some guys, moving stuff around, maybe even, trading more players that you already have that are actually in your rotation, such as a Peyton Pritchard. I even heard rumblings of, trading for Kevin Durant. I was really hoping that would never happen, and obviously it didn't. So, I'll take it as a Celtics fan, and I'm sure the Thunder will take the value for Mike Muscala that they got. So A- all around. One of my favorite trades for all three teams coming up here. The Clippers get Eric Gordon and 3 future second-round picks. The Rockets get a protected pick swap from it's going to be between Milwaukee and the Clippers, so I'll explain that here in a minute. They also got John Wall and Danny Green, although both of those guys have been waived as of the time of this recording, so they're not going to stay on the team. And the Grizzlies get Luke Kennard from the Clippers there. So for grades, I'm going to give the Clippers a B- here. Now, I don't love that they gave up a pick here. I don't particularly like that, considering the fact that the Clippers already, you know, they're kind of like going all in at this point, and Eric Gordon and that contract, I feel like should have had picks attached to it to get rid of it if you're Houston, but they somehow got a pick back in exchange for Eric Gordon, which I think is just crazy. So I don't love that, but they did get 3 second-round picks, so that does kind of ease the blow of that. And Eric Gordon, while his contract is insane for the value that he gives you, I do think he is going to help you in terms of the playoffs, and I think he does make that team a little bit better, even though I like Luke Kennard a lot. So I'm going to give it a B- here for the Clippers. The Rockets, I'm going to give a B+, because, again, I think getting a pick for Eric Gordon, I mean, that's just crazy to me. I feel like you really should have had to attach picks to get rid of him, but somehow you convinced the team that, you know what, we'll give you a pick to get that. So kind of explaining. So right now, the pick that the Rockets received is actually a Milwaukee first round pick that has the ability to be swapped to the Clippers pick. So because I was a little confused. I didn't know that. I had to kind of look it up and kind of keep digging on it, because I was like, a pick swap? The Rockets are the worst team in the NBA, because it's this year. The pick swap is in 2023. It's not a pick swap in like 2030 or something like that, where you have no idea what's going to happen. It's a pick swap this year. So I was thinking, like, why would the Rockets give the right to swap picks when they're the worst team in the NBA? And the Clippers are not the worst team in the NBA. They're not fantastic. They're somewhere in the middle, but they're not the worst team in the NBA by any stretch. They're going to be outside the lottery for almost for certain. So what was going on? Didn't realize that pick actually belonged to Milwaukee. So Milwaukee is going to be at like pick like 28, 29, 30, depending on obviously how they end up in the playoffs. And then Clippers are projected right now to be somewhere in the high teens. So you're actually going to be able to move up a few spots, move up like 10 spots there if you're Houston. So it actually does provide some value to anybody that's kind of confused as to how that pick swap thing kind of works. And then obviously John Wall and Danny Green, you know, maybe they'd help your young guys, but they were waived anyway, so they didn't really matter. Really, the pick swap is what mattered. And then the Grizzlies, I'm going to give an A. I love this trade for the Grizzlies. 3 second-round picks for Luke Kennard. Another great offensive player that you can add. He's shooting like 45% from 3 this year, something crazy like that. I think he could really, really help you. You didn't give up a ton for him, especially considering you're one of the best teams in the NBA, and second-round picks don't particularly matter all that much, especially if you are that good of a team. So great job by the Grizzlies. This is one of my favorite value trades of the whole deadline. I love Luke Kennard. Gonna be kind of a controversial statement, but I might actually rather have Luke Kennard at this point than Eric Gordon. So I feel like you really got the best end of that deal if you are Memphis. So great job, Memphis. Great trade for you guys. Next trade is another big one, another 4-team trade. In this one, the 76ers get Jalen McDaniels from the Charlotte Hornets. They also get 2 second-round picks, one from Charlotte and one from Portland. The Hornets, and I'm going to botch this name completely, they receive Svi Mikhailiuk. I don't know, Svi Mikhailiuk. I don't know how to pronounce it. And then 2 second-round picks as well, one from Philly and one from Portland. The Trailblazers receive Cam Reddish, Matisse Thybulle, Ryan Arcidiacono, and a 2023 first-round pick from the Knicks. And then the Knicks, in return for that, get Josh Hart. So another one of these trades that 3 teams did really well and 1 team did very, very poorly. So, yep, here we go. For the 76ers, I'm giving them an A-. Another A-. I feel like I've given a lot of those out today. But it's just another really, really good trade, I think. Listen, I'm a big fan of Jalen McDaniels. I think if he's given enough playing time, he can really, really develop. He's already a great defender, and he's obviously very unpolished on the offensive end. He's averaging about 11 points a night, I believe, right now. But I do think that he provides great value and another great defender. Now, listen, I fully understand that, the 76ers are a playoff team and are going to be dangerous in the playoffs, but the Celtics have had their number. And any big body, great perimeter defender that you can throw at Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, all those other guys, the more you have, the better. You already have PJ Tucker on your team, who's, a problem for the Celtics in terms of their defense. He showed it last year on the Heat. So, you already have him. Now you got Jalen McDaniels on that squad. I think that you could, you really have some chances there where, you could really do some damage, I think. So, great trade. And they got 2 second-round picks as well. And I feel like, you gave up, you gave up Matisse Thybulle, and you gave up 2 second-round picks, but you got 2 second-round picks back, and Matisse Thybulle for Jalen McDaniels. I think that's a pretty even swap, quite frankly, for their value. I like Jalen McDaniels a little bit better at this point than Matisse Thybulle, so I think you got good value there, at least in my opinion. So A- for the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm in baseball mode, folks. Philadelphia 76ers. The Charlotte Hornets. Oh, Charlotte. All right. Before I say the grade, I understand that Jalen McDaniels was not going to stick around. I understand that he was on the last year of his contract. I understand that you felt like you needed to get rid of him. But this is what you got in return for him? A no-name that I've never heard of, and 2 second-round picks. That's it? For Jalen McDaniels, a young, developing guy for a team that's rebuilding. That's it. I mean, it's going to be my first F of the video. I hate this value for the Hornets. And again, I get it. Jalen McDaniels is leaving. You had to get something for him. But I find it hard to believe that this is all the value you could have gotten for Jalen McDaniels. Think about it. Matisse Thybulle, I feel like probably has similar value, right? He has similar value to Jalen McDaniels. I feel like that's fair. They're both on expiring contracts. They're both not the best offensive players in the world. They're both really good perimeter defenders. They play two different positions, but nonetheless, I feel like you could compare them similarly in terms of value. What the Philadelphia 76ers got in return for Matisse Thybulle was another guy who's a lot like Matisse Thybulle, and they got 2 second-round picks. Although they did give up 1 second-round pick. But guess what? You also gave up a second-round pick if you're Charlotte. So you gave the Philadelphia 76ers a second-round pick to take Jalen McDaniels from you, and you got 1 second-round pick and a guy you never heard of in return. Ugh. F if I could. Trailblazers. I'm giving this an A. I love this trade. I think that it's really good value for the Trailblazers. Because look, again, they're rebuilding. Josh Hart's been great for them this year. But at this point, you're pretty much conceding that you're not gonna really do well in the postseason if you even make it there. So Cam Reddish, I love Cam Reddish. Again, another guy I was hoping the Celtics might try and trade for. You got Matisse Thybulle, who is a good defending guard, which I think you really need, considering your backcourt right now is a guard who's not great at defense at Damian Lillard and another guard who's not great on defense in Anthony Simons. So I think that he's really going to help you out if he sticks around. Ryan Arcidiacono doesn't really move the needle for me at all. But you also get a first-round pick. And that's what you got for Josh Hart. I mean, that's and two second-round picks. I mean, I think it's great value for that. Especially considering where they're at as a franchise. So I'm going to give that an A. And for the Knicks, I'm going to give it a B+. Look, I thought that Cam Reddish was a bust in terms of, the value for the Knicks. I think you traded two second-round picks for him, or something like that, or maybe even just 1 second-round pick. I can't even remember at this point what they traded for Cam Reddish. But they ended up basically moving Cam Reddish and a first-round pick, and you got somebody who is clearly better in Josh Hart and fits that team really, really well and what they need. So good for the Knicks. I think that it was really great value. Now, do I love the fact that Cam Reddish didn't work out? No. And do I love the fact that they gave up their first-round pick this year when, quite frankly, they should be trying to rebuild a little bit more? No. That's why I'm giving it a B+ and not an A. So that explains that. B+ for the Knicks. 2 more trades, guys. We're almost done. The Clippers in this one get Mason Plumlee in exchange, from the Charlotte Hornets, I should say, in exchange for Reggie Jackson and a second-round pick in 2028. For the Clippers, I give this a B-. I think that he really is gonna. I would like it more if he was gonna start for them, but I don't think that he's gonna start for them. I think he's gonna come off the bench. Ivica Zubac is still gonna be their starting center. And you know what? You didn't give up a whole lot. Mason Plumlee doesn't really do much for me. He's all right. He's not gonna move. He's not gonna. Again, I've said he's not gonna move the needle a whole bunch. During this video, but I just don't think he's going to really make a huge difference. Believe he's on an expiring contract as well, so he probably won't stick around. So give up a second-round pick and a guy who, quite frankly, did well for you in Reggie Jackson. Yeah, it's not the best value. It's not the worst trade I've seen. It's still above average. I still think they got the better end of this deal, so B- for the Clippers here. And then for the Hornets, just slightly down from that. I'm going to give it a C+. I really think he could have gotten more for Mason Plumlee than just a second-round pick. Now, the reason I say just second-round pick is because I'm not sure if it's already happened, but I know that there's been discussion that Reggie Jackson's going to get bought out. So that means you're basically just getting a second-round pick in 5 years for Mason Plumlee. I think you could have gotten a little more value than that, especially considering guys that play less than Mason Plumlee, like a Mo Bamba, guys like that are just not really doing it for me. They went for more than just 1 second-round pick. So I think he could have gotten a little more value there for Charlotte. So C+ for me. And now comes the big boy, the Kevin Durant trade in all of its glory, and it is our last trade of the video. So in this trade, the Phoenix Suns receive, obviously, as I've said, Kevin Durant and TJ Warren. Let's not forget about TJ Warren and how good he can be. The Brooklyn Nets receive Mikal Bridges, who dropped like 45 points the other night, by the way, Cam Johnson, Juan Pablo Vaulet, something like that, 4 unprotected first-round picks, 1 first-round pick swap, and 2 second-round picks, both from the Milwaukee Bucks. For those 2 second-round picks, essentially, the Bucks get Jay Crowder from the Phoenix Suns, and the Indiana Pacers, in this one, get George Hill, Jordan Nwaba, Serge Ibaka, 3 second-round picks, and cash considerations. Yeah. I mean, this is a big old blockbuster, and I love it. I think this is one of the most fair trades I've seen in quite some time. So, let's start with the Phoenix Suns. I'm giving it an A+. This is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, value trades that I've seen. Listen, Kevin Durant speaks for himself. He's fantastic. He's still under contract for a handful of years, so it's not like the Kyrie trade, right, where you have to worry about him not re-signing. No, he's in Phoenix for at least the next 3 years. So they get long-term value on top of what they gave up. And then, obviously, listen, TJ Warren, I believe he played for Phoenix coming up, so they know exactly how talented TJ Warren is. And he was putting up 20 points a night before his injury in Indiana. So guess what? I think that is a sneaky addition as well on top of getting Kevin Durant. Please. Listen, James Harden was traded for 8 first-round picks. Kevin Durant was traded for 4 and 1 pick swap. I think that it's fantastic value for Kevin Durant, and you're getting TJ Warren on top of it. Now, listen, Mikal Bridges is a great player. Cam Johnson was, he was a solid role player for you, but I think that's just part of the game. You got to give up something if you're going to get Kevin Durant. You don't have the opportunity to get somebody like that very often. He's a generationally good player. You don't have a chance to trade for him very often. So go ahead and go all in. The new ownership of Phoenix has to be thrilled with what they got. A+ for me. But on the flip side, A+ for the Nets. I think this is a great trade for the Nets. If for any reason, they are doing the hardest thing you could possibly do. You're taking a team that is well above 500, and you are saying, we are not good enough to win a championship. It does not matter what our record says. We are stuck in purgatory, and I refuse to be in purgatory forever. Yes, this year they're probably going to end up in the middle of the pack in terms of record because there's not a whole lot of the year left. Even if they lost every game for the rest of the year, they still would have like 35 wins. So like they're still going to get like the 19th pick in the draft or something like that. So for me, I think that it's really difficult to make that decision, and the Brooklyn Nets made that decision. And they got a package back that I think is really, really great. Mikal Bridges, obviously you get those 4 first-round picks that are all unprotected to my knowledge. You get a pick swap, which is important, and you get a couple of second-round picks, basically for nothing, really. You didn't really give up anything else other than that. So I think it's a fantastic trade for the Nets. I'm so excited to see how they play because watching them right now, it's more fun than when KD and Kyrie were on the team. So I'm really, really excited to see how that rebuild goes over there in Brooklyn. And for the Bucks, I'm going to give this a B. I think they did give up a lot. They gave up a couple of second-round picks. They gave up Jordan Nwaba. They gave up Serge Ibaka. They gave up cash considerations. I think that's a decent amount for Jay Crowder. So you know what? I like Jay Crowder. I think he fits that team very well. I think that they needed somebody like him to come off the bench. But at the same time, you did give up quite a bit. So value not quite as high for me as I would have probably liked for Milwaukee. So I'm giving that a B. And I am giving a B- to the Pacers. Mostly just because I'm kind of confused as to what is kind of going on with Indiana. Now, I think they gave up, the only person that they gave up was Juan Pablo Vaulette, who's like a 26-year-old guy overseas who's got drafted a couple years ago that hasn't played in the NBA. And they got 3 second-round picks, cash, and 3 players for him. So I was like, how in the world did they pull this off? Like, that seems too good to be true. That seems crazy, a crazy amount of value. But, they had to release a bunch of guys, and I think they're buying out George Hill and Jordan Nwaba and Serge Ibaka anyway. So I'm kind of just a little confused, quite frankly, with the kind of breadth and all the stuff that the Pacers did with this trade. So I'm giving it a B-, mostly just out of sheer confusion. I'll probably get called out in the comment section for that, but that's okay. I'm just confused. I'm a confused man, and that's all that matters. But yeah, so that is going to do it for me. Thank you guys so much for sticking it out to the end if you stuck it out. Thank you. I know it was a long one and a lot of trades to go over, but we got through them, and we got through them well, at least in my mind, and only a couple times did I sound dumb, at least in my opinion. So if you guys think I sounded dumb more often than I think, please let me know in the comment section below. Let me know if I forgot anything. Let me know if I left a player out or a pick out or something like that, or you're confused on something. I love to keep that discussion going with you guys. This is obviously one of my favorite things to do. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.
Hey guys, me again. I just want to say thank you so much for checking out the Lopes Goes Last podcast. It means the world to me that you decided to stick all the way to the end. That's super cool. So thank you again. And if you really, really like what you see, I'd love for you to subscribe, like the video, and share it with all your family and friends because, this is my passion project. This is what I love to do, and I really want the sucker to grow. And the only way that can happen is through you guys, is if you guys can help me out. So again, if you like what you saw, please subscribe, like the video, share with all your friends and family. That's the only way this is going to grow. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.